Taoiseach, motorists who have received their motor insurance premium renewals in the post in recent months have got quite a shock, with dramatic increases in the premiums being charged by insurance companies. In the past year, premiums have gone up by around 30%, and indeed by more in some cases. And on top of this, the insurers' representative body, Insurance Ireland, is predicting that motor insurance premiums are likely to increase by a further 25% next year. So if you take someone who had a premium of €400 per annum last year, by next year that premium is likely to be at least €650. So over a couple of years, the reality is many motorists are now facing an increase of somewhere between €250 and €300. These increases are simply not sustainable, Taoiseach. I hope you will agree with that. They are placing increasing pressure on household budgets and indeed on businesses as well, who are relying on motor fleets, for example, to conduct their business. The evidence is that younger drivers and drivers with older cars are being particularly hard hit by these increases in premiums. Now, there are many reasons why motor insurance premiums are increasing, including the increasing number of claims and, it would appear, the increasing cost of claims. Fraudulent claims are on the rise, and there is a lack of transparency in the way that many claims are being settled and around the true financial performance of individual insurance firms in Ireland. It is remarkable, Taoiseach, that 7 out of 10 claims are being settled by insurance companies without going to court, and there is no register whatsoever kept as to the overall cost of those. So there is a complete lack of information which is necessary to get a proper handle on this issue. Now, as you know, the €1 billion plus bailout of Quinn Insurance and the collapse of Setanta Insurance has brought into sharp focus the need for the insurance sector to be properly regulated and to ensure specifically that firms are making proper provisions for future claim liabilities. Now, we have been here before, and in the late 1990s, at a time when motor insurance premiums were spiralling, the Motor Insurance Advisory Board was set up. It issued its first report in April of 2002 with 67 recommendations, and the implementation of many of those recommendations, Taoiseach, including the setting up of the Personal Injuries Assessment Board, directly led to 6 successive years of premiums being reduced. So what I'm calling for, Taoiseach, is for the Motor Insurance Advisory Board now to be re-established so that we can have an independent examination of why premiums are increasing at the current unsustainable rate. The Advisory Board would need to examine a range of issues, including how claims are settled, the true financial position of insurance firms in Ireland, the need for judicial guidelines to be introduced to bring greater consistency to awards, to review the operation of the Personal Injuries Assessment Board, and to examine the role of the Motor Insurance Bureau of Ireland and the Insurance Compensation Fund when individual insurance firms get into difficulty. The Consumer Association of Ireland has also called for the establishment of this advisory board. Taoiseach, I hope that you will agree to this call today so that we can get an independent assessment of why motor insurance premiums have gone through the roof and are likely to increase even further over the next couple of years, because we've been here before and hopefully we've learned those lessons.
Thank you for raising what is an important issue for a lot of people. I think anybody who owns a car is aware personally of the pressure from insurance companies in relation to rising premiums. It is, though, at a time when, of course, fuel prices have fallen substantially. So, in fact, in a lot of cases, particularly in the case of a lot of people going back to work who are commuting in the Greater Dublin area, notwithstanding that there's now great pressure in terms of traffic because of the fall, very significant falls in the price of diesel and petrol, the actual overall cost of motoring has not risen significantly, and I'm sure you've taken that into account. What are the reasons for the rises in the motor insurance premiums? Well, one of them that happened happened a couple of years ago was via the EU, where there was an equalisation of charges between women drivers and male drivers, and that in fact was, as you know, Deputy, to the advantage of a lot of younger male drivers who tend to be the people who unfortunately feature more often in lists of accidents. And you may recall that a lot of women who have very safe, very careful driving history and a claim-free history ended up on the wrong side of the equalisation process. But that process, I think, also drove a general trend of changes in prices, which may have contributed to the upward pressure. PIAB as well has been a significant force in settlements being reached which don't involve lengthy court cases. I don't know statistically if the number of insurance fraud claims, fraudulent claims, is up. I certainly know that there's been a number of court cases where we've seen, for instance, Facebook evidence and other evidence on people's social media of people who apparently had suffered severe damage, but when their social media information was shared with the court, some of them appeared to be extraordinarily fit and well recovered from any injury they may have received as a result of an accident, and some of those accidents also, from the evidence of the court cases, appear to have been arranged. Whether that represents an increase or not, Deputy, I'm not sure. I don't know if you have evidence for that increase, but certainly the courts have dealt, I have to say, in a very serious way. In relation to the establishment of the motor insurance, the re-establishment of the Motor Insurance Advisory Board, I must say I have an open mind on that. I think the appropriate place to discuss that, though, first, before we do that, because this was a mechanism which was used quite a long time ago, and the industry has changed quite a bit since then. There have been a lot more amalgamations and mergers. It's a much more concentrated industry among a few players. There are far fewer brokers than would have been the case at the time when it was originally established, and a lot of people would have used the efforts of brokers to actually shop around for the best price. I think the difficulty nowadays is that a lot of best price shopping is done online, and sometimes the variations in the different online offers are extremely difficult to work out. So my own suggestion on this, Deputy, would be that while I don't have a particular problem with the Motor Insurance Advisory Board, I think it would be appropriate for the Dáil Committee that covers this area to actually have a discussion on this with a view to scoping out what are the factors that are leading to the change, have some research done on what are the impacts. You know, you talk about younger drivers. The problems with younger drivers from an insurance point of view is that, unfortunately for themselves and for the industry, they have a higher rate of accident and therefore a higher rate of risk, and therefore they're bearing the brunt. But I do think that the appropriate Dáil Committee would be the venue to have it scoped and examined, with a view then to bringing in a modern mechanism for more up-to-date regulation, which reflects the online nature of a lot of the industry nowadays, as opposed to what was there when the original board was established.
I now call Deputy Michael McGrath for a supplementary question.
Yeah, thank you, Lasky and Corley. Taoiseach, for somebody receiving their motor insurance renewal premium in the post today, that's showing an increase of 150 or 200 euro, burying this in a Dáil committee is not a satisfactory answer. The truth of the matter is that we have been here before, and the establishment of the Motor Insurance Advisory Board, which independently examined the reasons why premiums were rising so significantly in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, issued a series of recommendations which, when implemented, directly resulted in insurance premiums falling. Now, you've raised a number of issues that are essentially irrelevant to this debate about falling fuel prices. It's little consolation to somebody who gets their motor insurance renewal in the post to look at the nearest forecourt forecourt and see the price of diesel down a few cents. That's not the issue here. And similarly, the changes introduced at EU level are not the reason why insurance premiums have gone through the roof. The reality is that Taoiseach doesn't explain the issue we're talking about here. The industry will say that it is essentially the rising cost of claims. But we don't have a handle on that, because 7 out of 10 claims are settled outside of the Personal Injuries Assessment Board and outside of a court environment. So we don't have those published records. And in the absence of that information, it is very difficult to reach any definitive conclusion as to why the cost of premiums is escalating at the rate that it currently is. And the bottom line is that for motorists at home who are watching this, who have got their renewal in the post and who are expecting to get it in the next number of months, they're looking at increases in the hundreds of euro. And shopping around isn't the answer, because people are doing that, and they are finding that the quotations from all the other firms have gone up correspondingly, and there is essentially no saving to be achieved. Now, the Minister for Finance did raise the issue of the insurance sector generally with the Central Bank, and Governor Hohenheim wrote to Minister Noonan back in August and made a series of recommendations, including the introduction of judicial guidelines that when these cases do get to court, so that there is a degree of consistency in the level of court awards that are being made. But Taoiseach, you would be doing consumers a service if today in the House you committed to re-establishing the Motor Insurance Advisory Board to sit down with all the stakeholders to get a handle on the true facts and to get an understanding of what is driving the unsustainable level of increase in motor insurance premiums. I can't for the life of me see why you would have a problem with that. Why would you not immediately commit to re-establishing that advisory board so that we can identify the recommendations which will make a real impact on the pockets of consumers? 30% in the last year, Taoiseach, another 25% next year, which is what the industry is predicting. A bill of €400 going to €650 or maybe €700. That is not sustainable, and there are issues that are driving that which can be dealt with. Be dealt with by way of legislation and other initiatives. So let's deal with it, and let's get the Motor Insurance Advisory Board back up and running to start examining this quickly, and not just send it to another Dáil committee, which you know won't have the time to deal with this issue before the general election.
Well, what I would say, Deputy, before we go establishing another entity or re-establishing another entity, which was there in different times before the industry changed dramatically. And by the way, you wouldn't dismiss the higher insurance premiums charged to women out of hand. To be honest, if you were a woman looking at your insurance bill, and you need to talk to some of the women in your life and they'll tell you about it, because it's a very sore, let me tell you, it's a very, very, very sore point. But the second point I want to make to you, no, you're saying that the insurance companies are overcharging in relation to motor insurance, and that you want to see motor insurance coming down. I have no difficulty in agreeing with you on that. But remember, and you're the finance spokesperson, we set up a regulation, both for regulation and prudential regulation, of all the insurance industry, including motor insurance, in the Central Bank. At the last count, Deputy, the Central Bank, I think, was employing in or around 1,400 people, or proposes to employ that number of people. Now, let's be reasonable about this. We've some very fine studies done by the bands of economists who work on all our behalf in the Central Bank. I think it is very possible to arrange to have a study done to find out what are the issues for the motor insurance industry. Before we go setting up what you're proposing is effectively a quango. I don't have a problem with, well, PIAB, for instance, has done very good work. I acknowledge that in relation to cutting the costs in respect of claims and keeping the claims out of court. But I'm saying to you that with all of of those people working down in the central bank, we should be able to get, through the people who are on the Finance Committee, a detailed report from the central bank. Well, sorry, the central bank are the regulator for both the prudential regulation and of the insurance industry in general. They have, Deputy McGrath, all the figures, and I'm perfectly happy, and I will write to the Governor, the new Governor of the Central Bank, to say that this is a very important consumer issue. Well, you talked about something slightly different in respect of Minister Noonan. I'm perfectly happy, and I will write to the new Governor. He only took up office about 2 weeks ago, to ask him to actually undertake. He's a lot of economists working for him down there, to undertake a detailed review, as they have done in a whole series of other areas in quarterly reports that they publish in the Central Bank Bulletin. And we'll get that report, and then we'll make a decision on whether another new board or an old board needs to be re-established. We also have to take account of the online nature now of the insurance industry. And finally, Deputy, can I say, shopping around in relation to insurance, even with the higher premiums, does actually pay. And you shouldn't say to consumers that they shouldn't shop around.
I will call Deputy Mary Lou Magdon.
Consumers, they shouldn't shop around.